Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Dashing for those apartment and glancing at the clock, Kathy headed straight for the bedroom, quickly pulling off her clothes and throwing them on as she went. She only had half an hour at her disposal. She mustn't be late for her date with Robert at one of Washington's finest restaurants. Therefore, it was worth hurrying. Robert was not just a man, but a gorgeous man. Robert, despite his very young age, he managed to establish himself as an outstanding director. And to top it all off, he was incredibly handsome. And his voice is low, commanding, from which all the female representatives on the set of Goosebumps ran along the skin. To say that Kathy was surprised when he offered to have dinner together, that's not to say anything. There were many actresses on the set flirting with him. And in Kathy's opinion, they were more beautiful. But his choice fell on her, to which the woman was unspeakably glad. The evening passed simply magically. Robert turned out to be a very well-read and interesting conversationalist, as Kathy herself. The time spent in his company flew by in a flash. And as it turned out, they had a lot in common. So they could talk for hours on a variety of subjects. Kathy had never been so at ease with a man. The woman did not class herself as a beauty, but apparently the men had their own opinion on this matter, because she had enough admirers. With one of them, she even lived in a civil marriage for about 3 years. But over time began mutual reproaches and scandals, and parting brought only relief, which in principle was to be expected. After all, Kathy was initially clear that they are not a couple. But for some reason she decided, as they say in the People, bitch and love. But he didn't, and he wasn't with his beloved. Then there were fleeting romances, but nothing serious with none of her men. She would not want to create a family, despite the fact that recently turned 35. Deep down, like any woman, she wanted a family and children and the comforts of home badly. So when Robert started paying her attention, she shied away from him like the devil from an incense tree. She immediately decided that he was too good for a woman like her. And of course, he just wanted to have fun with her. Nothing serious could be expected. But the man was persistent. And soon she gave in and agreed to a date. After the first, there was a second, then a third, and Kathy's head was blown off. From now on, all her thoughts were occupied only with Robert. And so when she was once again going to meet her beloved, she suddenly had an unexpected thought. She sat down on the edge of the bed and began to think out loud. Well, if you think about it that way, we've been dating for a little over a month now. And I'm always thinking about him. But nothing's happened between us yet. Maybe I should invite him over. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I've wanted to for a long time. I hope he won't think badly of me. And on the other hand, be as it will be necessary to live today. The woman instantly grabbed her cell phone, knowing that at any minute she could change her mind and the whole plan would go to hell, and dialed Robert. By the sound of the voice she heard, she realized that the offer pleased him, and he promised to be at her place in about 40 minutes. Stepping over the threshold of her apartment, Robert couldn't contain his admiration. A 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Washington. It's not too cramped for you alone. The man laughed, at his own joke. No, I'm used to it. The woman shrugged with a smile. Are you taking it off? No, it's mine. I didn't expect it, Robert said. Turns out you're a very eligible bride. Well, it's just that I've been trying to keep a low profile for a while now, Kathy explained. You see, at my last job, I decided to throw a party and invited my coworkers over. After that, I had a few too many suitors. And the interesting thing is, they were mostly from out of town. You know what I mean? I think I do. Well, don't worry about me. I've got a place to live, but I don't have a woman like you. With those words, the man pulled Kathy to him and kissed her. You know, Robert stayed until morning, and they went to the movie studio together. And it was just this moment that the woman was not very happy until today. She tried to hide their relationship. And as it turned out, not in vain. When their affair became known, Aunt Kathy sprinkled slanted glances, and the leading actress began to build the deceased all sorts of intrigues. But this Kathy only amused. She was afraid of something else. Separation, because sooner or later she bored Robert, and he will part with her. Of that she had no doubt. It was only a matter of time. Well, what could she possibly tie a man like him to her? What had she done to deserve him? Nothing. Kathy, of course, had not told Robert that the apartment in the center was not all her wealth. Besides, she had a bank account and stocks, from which she had a decent income that allowed her not to work. But the woman did not want to sit at home. She owed it all to her father. 10 years ago, when after a long illness, her mother died, her father was not long left without the comfort of a widower and married a young girl. With this girl, he went abroad for permanent residence, and Kathy left the apartment and money, as if wishing to pay off his daughter, who accidentally found out that his girl was the mistress of her father while her mother was still alive. Since then, he had literally cut Kathy out of his life and called her only a couple times for her birthday and Christmas. Kathy took no offense, except that for some reason her father's calls made her feel even more lonely. But when she started dating Robert, her life took on new colors. Men more and more often stayed overnight at her place, and in the mornings they went to work together. So his things appeared in Kathy's apartment, first a razor and a toothbrush, and one morning Robert offered, "Kathy, how would you feel about me moving in with you?" The woman was confused. She hadn't expected such a question and wasn't at all prepared for it. "I mean, do you want us to live together?" "Well, yeah, I was just thinking, I spend every night with you. So what's the point of going back and forth? We're adults. Let's give it a shot. What's stopping us? I'm not talking about marriage yet, because it's too big a step for me. For now, I feel very comfortable with you, as if we were two halves of the same whole. And then we need to check how we live with ourselves, if our life will not spoil our relationship." "On what?" "How do you feel about living together?" Holding a cup of flavored coffee in one hand, with the other he pulled Kathy to him. She, not believing her happiness, nodded her head in agreement. "Yes, of course, I agree. Move in with me even today." A year later, Robert proposed to her. For the woman, it was not a surprise. In a year of living together, she could believe that they could have a family. Robert turned out to be quite a domestic man. In the evenings, he liked to read books with Kathy. Their tastes in literature coincided, and after reading they vigorously discussed the heroes' plots. They also liked to go to the theater, to the movies, and in general, they were interesting together. But before making a proposal to the beloved, something happened that put Kathy in a deadlock. Robert challenged her to a frank conversation, and it concerned the children. "Kathy, I can see how you're fascinated by little children. And I suppose, like any woman, you want to have your own. But I want to warn you right off the bat. I'd like to state my position on fatherhood, so to speak. I never want children. Not at all. Do you understand me? If you're with me, we won't have children." Robert said what he said, and Kathy sat there like a thunderbolt. "Meaning? Are you seriously saying that now? If I understand correctly, our relationship is so meaningless to you that you don't plan to have children with me. That's where you're wrong. Everything that's going on between us is very serious to me, and I plan to start a family with you. And if at first I thought I just liked you, now I can safely say I love you, Kathy. I want to be with you forever, but I don't want to cheat on you. I'm never going to have kids ever. You either have to accept that and walk through life with me, or you don't. Decide." The woman was silent, fighting back the incoming tears. It can't be like this. It's too hard a choice. Breaking up with Robert was something she couldn't do. He was the meaning of her life, but she didn't want to live without her children either. And the worst part was that Kathy was already pregnant. Robert just didn't know it yet. And how to tell him now, she had no idea. She wanted to have a child with this man, the man she loved. Kathy began to dream of holding her baby in her arms. But at that moment, she had no idea how adamant Robert was about children. And now she was frightened. Robert. Her consternation was mistaken for reflection on what she had heard, and grabbing her arm, began to coax her. "Kathy, well, think for yourself. Are we bored, the two of us? We're free. We can travel, and no one and nothing binds us hand and foot. You loved Paris so much. If we'd had a child, would we have traveled there? No, of course not. I've never understood why family life has to be about children. A family is two people who want to be together. and it doesn't necessarily have to be cemented by children. But do you really want to be washing diapers and staying up all night? A stunned Kathy remained silent, and Robert decided she agreed with him. Tema kicked him in the cheek and went into the kitchen to make dinner. The man loved to cook, and his meals were always exquisite. A couple weeks after this conversation, Robert proposed to Kathy, and she accepted. Accordingly, he was sure she had accepted all his terms. Kathy's heart was torn to pieces. Of course, the gestational age was small, and an abortion could have been done. But she didn't even think about that option. She was already 35, and she was getting rid of the baby now. What then to wait for Robert to change their views on life? And if he didn't? Signed, Robert and Kathy modestly, without too much fuss. After the wedding, however, sat in a restaurant, inviting only about 10 common friends. The guests happily congratulated the newlyweds, noticing that the bride was too thoughtful and not very cheerful. And only one of the guests knew the real reason for this mood, Kathy Nina, a close friend of the bride. The girls had been friends since high school. And even when Nina left D.C., they stayed in touch. They called each other from time to time. And recently, after another divorce, Nina came back to live back in Washington. Kathy decided to share her little secret with the book. And their last candid conversation was just before the wedding. The friend said, "If you want my opinion, it's not fair to your fiancé. He should know about your situation before you get married. And frankly, I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish. From my point of view, it's easier for him to accept the fact that you're pregnant now. But when you live together for a while and he suddenly notices your rounded belly and he can't help but notice it, that's when it'll look like you married him. By deception. But it's basically true. He was honest with you, and he dotted all the I's and T's before the wedding. What you're doing, Kathy, is despicable." The bride almost cried. "You don't understand. If I tell him, he'll just leave me, and after the wedding he won't. Are you sure about that? Then it'll only get worse. Then we'll be husband and wife, and I want to believe that he'll get over it. You're stupid, Kathy, and your plan is stupid. Look at your Robert. He's a gorgeous man. You can only dream about him. From the looks of it, he loves you. You spend all your free time together. What are you missing? Maybe you should consider an abortion before it's too late. We'll do it quietly, no dust. I'll help you. Robert won't find out. And then you can marry him with peace of mind. I don't have children either, though I've been married. In more ways than one. So, nothing. They're not really the end of the world." "No," Kathy exclaimed at the time. "We're not even talking about turnover. This baby is mine. I need him." Kathy pressed her hands to her still flat belly and stroked it, as if to soothe the budding there. Life comforting, letting her know that this new life was very important to her. Not much had changed in Kathy and Robert's lives since the signing, except for the wedding rings appearing on their fingers and a stamp in their papers. Otherwise, everything was the same. The newlyweds were always together. Robert began to plan a new trip. This time he wanted to visit Italy with his wife and was actively discussing it with Kathy, who was increasingly silent. She knew that this trip was unlikely to happen by the time Robert planned it. Kathy's belly would already be visible, and it would be impossible to hide the obvious. Kathy pulled away as best she could on purpose with her underwear. Robert noticed that she had put on weight and was immensely proud of himself, as he believed that this was due to his own culinary skills. The man could not even guess that the reason for his wife's fullness was far from his tasty, leathery ones. And Kathy continued to be silent. What was she waiting for? Yes, she herself did not know what she wanted to prolong the moments of happiness in married life. And of course, in the back of her mind lived the hope that her husband would accept her pregnancy, when it was too late to change anything. One thing she hadn't considered. If at home she could hide the morning cab of a goat, then at the film studio immediately noticed that the woman began to react strongly to odors and often went to the bathroom. Women in such cases cannot be fooled. And then one day the unexpected happened. One of the female employees decided to congratulate Robert on his impending fatherhood. The man laughed and assured his colleague that she was mistaken, but a grain of doubt in his soul. He began to reflect and came to the conclusion that his wife behaves lately quite strange, and she had put on weight. No, it can't be, he said to himself. Kathy would never do that to him. He had told her everything, and she had agreed with his position and accepted his proposal. Even so, that same evening, while in the kitchen with his wife and arranging another of his culinary creations on plates, Robert said with a slight chuckle, "You're not going to believe this, Kathy. I was congratulated today on my impending fatherhood." The fork yanked loudly against the plate fell out of the woman's hand, and seeing her tense up, her spouse froze in place. "Kathy, maybe you can answer me too. You heard what I just told you." The woman continued to remain silent, her head low over the kitchen table. Then Robert, turning the pan of food on the stove. With one jerk, he moved a chair and sat down across from his wife. "Look me in the eye, Kathy. Tell me it's a misunderstanding. I beg you, you couldn't be so mean as to deceive me." "Yes, I could. Can you believe I'm so mean?" Kathy mumbled, but she never looked up. Robert turned pale, his mind reeling from what he had heard. And when he found out she was 4 months pregnant, he couldn't bear it. "I mean, 4 months. So when we got married, you were already pregnant, and of course, you couldn't have known about it. Why? Tell me, why did you do this to me?" And then Kathy became hysterical. She looked her spouse straight in the eyes and screamed, shook with sobs. "Why? Why is it always like this with you? You're only thinking about yourself, and I'm thinking about me. I want this baby more than anything in the world. I wanted it from you because I love you. Yeah, I didn't tell you the truth. You can take that as a lie, a betrayal, a meanness. But I don't see how having a baby could hurt us. Well, we won't be able to travel for a while until Mom's a little older. So what? I'm already 35. Robert, don't you see, I'm ripe to be a mother. It's such a blessing to give birth to someone you love." Kathy tried to take the man's hand, but he pulled her back sharply and asked in a cruel voice she had never heard before, "But you could have terminated the pregnancy. That was an option you hadn't considered." Kathy, already unable to say anything, just shook his head negatively, and Robert continued, "You and I have been together a long time. Kathy, I've never told you about my past. There are some things that are unbearable to remember and even harder to tell. You know I've been married. You asked me the reason for my divorce, and I said the first thing that came to mind. We didn't see eye to eye. I lied then. We divorced when we couldn't keep our daughter safe." Kathy gave her husband a surprised look. Yeah, you heard me. I was a father once before. My little girl was 4 years old at the time. She got sick. Acute pneumonia killed her in a couple days. It was misdiagnosed at first, and that's what made the difference. And when they realized it, it was too late. Do you have any idea how painful that is? Watching your child die and there's nothing you can do to help. I wanted to go to sleep with her forever. My wife and I couldn't go on living together, couldn't see each other. It was then that I came to the conclusion that I would never be a father again. The world around us is already full of suffering, and we have no right to condemn innocent babies to it. And I want to remind you of my decision. I gave you advance notice before the wedding. I was honest, and you did. So I don't want to see you anymore, Kathy, and I've gone to bed." Robert retired to his bedroom, slammed the door loudly behind him, and because as he did so, Kathy realized she didn't belong there. The woman is right. Worn in the next room on the couch. All night early in the morning, she heard her husband packing his things. Kathy pretended to sleep, as Robert wandered around the rooms putting his suitcase away. When he went into the hallway, she got up and walked out as if drunk. To him, she froze in the doorway, nuzzling her black pigtail with her head. "Leaving?" In a faint voice, she asked. "Yes, I'm leaving. What did you expect? I did a lot of thinking last night, and I've come to the conclusion that you shouldn't blame yourself for anything. You're a woman, and every woman wants to be a mother. But you've made your choice. I don't want this baby. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even want to see you with a belly. I don't like you being pregnant. I'm not planning on divorcing you just yet. And yes, you can put me down as the father. I'll help you with money too, but that's all you can count on." Saying all this, the husband did not look at Kathy, and then tried to leave the apartment as quickly as possible. It was difficult for him to do so, because in addition to the bulky suitcase, there were 3 huge bags of his belongings. Trying to take it all in one go, never to come back, Kathy thought and grinned bitterly. When she arrived at work, Robert was not at the movie studio. He didn't show up for the next few days either, and after about a week, the rumors started that Robert wouldn't be here again. Colleagues squinted at Kathy, some with pity and some with poorly concealed gloating. What did she want? They whispered in the corners that he would be with her all her life. It's a wonder they ever got married. Now they'd have to get a divorce. But in principle, it was clear to everyone how the show would end. And then Nina came to visit, and she wasn't planning on feeling sorry for Kathy either. What did you want? Girlfriend? You know better than that. I warned you. Remember, you could have terminated the pregnancy, and none of this would be happening now. And now you've lost such a man. Nina could have gone on for a long time. But noticing Kathy's faded look, she realized that she was only hurting her. Then she put her arm around her friend's shoulders and led her to the kitchen. Come on, girl, let's have some tea. We can't have anything stronger now, but it's not worth it. You wanted a child and you have one. Financially, you're quite confident you can provide for your baby all by yourself. And men are men. They come and go. Now you need to pull yourself together and not be nervous and eat well. Time flew by very quickly. Kathy paused from foot to foot and reached the kitchen. She was just a little bit away from giving birth, and her belly was huge, so she couldn't move around like she used to. But in spite of this, now she was singing her songs as she promised to come to her. Kathy was unspeakably glad because on maternity leave she lacked communication. Sitting all day alone in a huge apartment was hard. When she heard the doorbell, she hurried to the door and swung it open. The woman's face changed. Robert was looking at her instead of her friend. They hadn't seen each other since he packed his things and left the apartment in a hurry. The man hadn't shown up at the movie studio all this time. Apparently, not wanting to meet with his wife, not once called her. Just disappeared from her life, and all reminder of him remained only the ring on Kathy's finger. And the constant longing. A lot of thoughts ran through the woman's head as she watched the present in the hallway of her spouse. And then there was a sudden hope. What if he changed his mind? What if he had come to stay? But it also immediately disappeared when Robert, without asking permission, stepped into the hallway and handed Kathy the keys to the apartment. I forgot to give them to you. I brought them myself to open them, and I didn't dare go in. Robert, seeing that his wife was in no hurry to take them, put the bunch on the nightstand in the hallway. And Kathy, whose mouth was suddenly dry, asked, You came, but you didn't have to worry about that. No, I just wanted to say goodbye. I'm leaving. Speaking with Kathy. Robert only looked at her face, carefully avoiding looking at her huge belly, tightly encased in a homemade robe. Kathy didn't really want to know the details, but Robert remained silent and waited for her to inquire about the details. So the woman squeezed out a question asking if you were going away for a long time. I hope forever. I have a friend in Germany invited me to work there. Not exactly on my profile, of course, but it is not terrible. I hope I can prove myself and do better. The woman's heart leaped out of her chest. There he stood before her. Such a beloved and dear man, and at the same time, such an alien, aloof man, averting his eyes. Why had he come at all? What would this goodbye text be for? It would have been easier to talk to him that way, much less see him. It was just unbearable. Suddenly, the room swam in Kathy's eyes, spinning on its axis, and at the same time, something very hot flowed down her legs. Lowering her eyes and struggling to focus her gaze, Kathy saw the red dribbles of her ankles. Jesus, that's blood. She managed to think. The woman before she passed out. I lost Robert, and now I'm losing the baby. This is my punishment for my lies. Robert, seeing her stagger and start to fall, managed to pick his wife up, preventing her from hitting the floor. And then I heard a scream behind me, What you did to her, you scoundrel. What happened? It was Nina, who Kathy was waiting for. She walked through the open door of the apartment and saw a frightening scene. Robert crouched on his knees, holding his bleeding, unconscious wife in his arms. I didn't do anything, he bellowed. Call an ambulance as soon as possible. The man did not wait for the doctor to come up to the apartment. He took his wife outside to wait for the ambulance near the entrance. After a while, Nina and Robert wandered around the hospital corridor waiting. They were informed that labor had begun, but was proceeding with complications. After a few hours, the doctor came out to them and addressed Robert, since he was officially the husband of the woman in labor. "Your wife can't discharge. We are deciding now, but she will probably have to have a C-section as well. I have to ask you, whose life is the priority, mom or the baby? You may have to make that difficult choice." "The mom, of course, the mom." Without thinking for a second, Robert exclaimed, "Say, Kathy, there's no choice here." Nina stood silently at a distance. She didn't know what to say. Of one thing, she was sure Kathy would not approve of this choice. If she herself were asked now, she would say with certainty that it was the child who should be saved, not her. And on the other hand, if Kathy didn't, who would raise her baby? Robert would clearly not be needed. Children's homes. From heavy thoughts, Nina clutched her head, and the doctor, having heard Robert's answer, withdrew with a quick step. And once again, the dreadful wait dragged on. Kathy's labor lasted almost 24 hours. Nina couldn't stay in the hospital the whole time. She ran in and out again. Robert, on the other hand, didn't leave for a minute. He didn't even seem to sit down once. His expression was grim, and he hadn't eaten or drunk in 24 hours. Looking at his haggard look, Nina realized how much he loved Kathy. Once again, the doctor came out to them. The robot looked at him fearfully, but the doctor was exhausted, and a satisfied smile played on his lips. "Thank goodness, Mom, and the baby are fine. You have a boy, son." But Robert let the doctor's last words pass his ears. After the anxiety he had suffered, he could not relax and realize that the danger was over. "Answer me, what's wrong with her? I'm telling you, your wife and child are alive. Their lives are no longer in danger. Daddy, you can breathe." The doctor came over and patted Robert on the shoulder, and he suddenly scampered away, leaning against the wall and covering his face with his hands. After the doctor left, Robert turned to the book. "I have to go. Tell Kathy that even though I will be living in Germany every month, she will receive a transfer from me." "What do you mean you have to go?" exclaimed the dumbfounded Nina. "Are you not even going to visit your wife?" "No, I don't see the point in that," Robert muttered his head. "We've both seen what meeting me leads to. I don't want Kathy to be unnecessarily nervous. Nothing has changed for me. I'm leaving. And don't tell her I've been here the whole time. Just tell her about the money." Robert, as if afraid to change his mind, ran down the corridor, and a confused Nina looked after him. How could it be? What is wrong with this man? He loves Kathy so much, but now he's running away. For what? Because of his principles. Stupid. How stupid. These men are strange after all. They are very difficult to understand. Nina shrugged her shoulders in bewilderment and hurried to her friend, whom the doctor had allowed to visit in the ward. Kathy watched with a smile as Thomas walked down the street. He had only recently started walking, and his movements were still rather tentative, but he was trying. Kathy longed for her husband. As she rejoiced at her son's progress, she thought how much she would like Robert to see Thomas grow and rejoice with her. Her husband kept his word and sent money every month. At first he even called, but the woman found it hard to talk, and she minimized communication only by correspondence. So, thinking about her husband, Kathy walked with her son along the house and suddenly heard a familiar voice behind her back. Who's that wonderful boy stomping around? Could it be Thomas, my favorite Katzen? Thomas smiled happily behind Nina, who was his godmother. She grabbed the boy in her arms and began to twirl in delight at his Libyan laughter. After Thomas was born, Nina changed her attitude towards children dramatically. She really wanted now to give birth to her own. Unfortunately, suitable candidates for the role of father did not appear on the horizon yet. Bathy's Kathy, a little Thomas, did not let him go from behind, whispered Kathy in his ear. "And I've already thought of something to give Resnick for his 1-year anniversary. It's been a long time coming, but he's gonna love it. And I won't even tell you yet. Let it be a surprise." The friends got distracted and immediately heard a loud cry. The little boy tripped and fell, scraping his ankles. But before Kathy could get to the boy, an unfamiliar man who was passing by jumped up. He lifted Thomas to his feet and went down on one knee, talked cheerfully to him. "Why is that big boy crying? Show me your hand." "Well, it's just a little scratch. No need to cry. We're men. Men don't cry." He winked at Thomas, and the boy was silent at once, looking at his palm and at the stranger with interest. While Kathy wiped his son's palms with wet wipes, Nina spoke coquettishly to the man. Lately, the woman had been on the hunt, and she regarded every male specimen as prey. And this specimen, it must be admitted, was quite good. Tall, broad-shouldered, good-looking. Kathy took Thomas in her arms and looked at the men carefully. "Don't you think? Or have we met somewhere before? Your face seems very familiar to me." He smiled. "Yes, we see you often. You always walk here with your son at this time. And I go to the cafe around the corner for lunch. I work as a sales consultant in a building supermarket." The man waved his hand toward the shopping center across the street from Kathy's house. "My name is Alex, by the way." Nina slightly grimaced upon hearing that the man was only a salesman, but nevertheless continued her onslaught on him. But to her disappointment, the man didn't pay any attention to her at all, talking only to Kathy and Thomas. A little chat. Alex ran off to work, not forgetting to wave goodbye to the boy. "Interesting individual," Nina said thoughtfully, looking after him. "But I have nothing to gain here. He is more interested in what?" "Oh, don't talk nonsense," laughed Kathy. "He was talking more to Thomas. He probably has a kid about the same age. That's why he got along so easily with my son." Maybe, Nina replied. "But I don't really care about that, by the way. You know, I'm not getting married. But as a potential father for my future child, I would consider him." That was the end of the discussion of the new acquaintance. But Kathy was not surprised when the next day, during their walk with Thomas, Nina came to visit him again. Kathy guessed that her friend was expecting to meet Alex, and he showed up, which was not surprising if, according to him, he went to the cafe every day at that time. The man didn't pass by, stopping to chat with his new acquaintances. But no matter how hard Nina tried to pull the blanket over him, all the man's attention was on Kathy and Thomas. And so it went on for a couple more days. And then Nina gave up, and then Alex never missed a day. He always stopped and spent half an hour with Kathy and the boy, referring to the fact that his lunch was an hour long. Kathy enjoyed chatting with his new acquaintance. Thomas was looking forward to seeing him. Meanwhile, the boy's birthday was approaching. Kathy told Alex that she had bought her son a children's sports complex for the youngest children, but she was not sure if she could assemble it. Then the man excitedly offered to help, but Kathy hesitated. Talking to him during walks is one thing, but to let him into her apartment is quite another. She didn't know anything about him except where he worked. Kathy asked, "What about your wife? Would she mind you helping a single woman?" Kathy's wife. "What are you talking about?" Alex smiled. "No, I have no one and never had anyone. I'm single as a finger. But judging by the way you communicate with Thomas, I thought that you have children. Well, at least some experience with them." "No children of my own. But I have 2 nephews, and I used to love hanging out with them until I went to DC. I'm not from around here." Wisconsin. "Overnight, I decided to change my life. So I came here. Thought maybe this is where I met my destiny. And you know, Met You Alex gave me a meaningful look of embarrassment and all the women she wasn't ready for. And in such a way Alex did not consider. And in general, Kathy did not look at men. Her heart was firmly occupied by Robert, thoughts of whom did not let her go. But nevertheless, Kathy let herself be persuaded and allowed the man to come to their house in the evening and help with the assembly of the sports complex. Unlike Robert, the superior, from the size of the stock apartment, when he first came to her, Alex paid no attention to it. As it turned out, the man's hands grew from the right place with the assembly of the complex. He undressed pretty quickly, but he was in no hurry to leave. He played with Thomas late into the night and seemed to enjoy it immensely. Kathy had nothing to do. How to offer him dinner, to which the man gladly agreed. He left only after Kathy had hinted in no uncertain terms that it was time for Thomas to go to bed. But before that, the man had asked to go to the boy's birthday party, saying that he had already thought of what present he would buy him. Kathy was just too embarrassed to say no. And a few days later, Alex was walking out of Kathy's driveway, quite pleased with himself. Everything seemed to be working out just fine this time. He had been to Thomas's birthday party today and seemed to have left a very good opinion of himself. This time he was confident with Kathy. He would get more than he had gotten from previous women. Alex had been living in Washington for almost 2 years now and had come here with the very definite purpose of finding a well-to-do woman and living off her. He had never liked to work, but what if he had a clue? That there are a lot of wealthy and single women in Washington, delight in male attention, and for their sake they are ready to do anything. Alex has a huge plus attractive appearance. He knew his price and wanted to take advantage of it. Unfortunately, his previous Moscow relationship had ended badly. Then he targeted a much older woman who was a rich widow. Alex had succeeded in gaining her trust. The old woman seemed to fall in love with him like a cat and let him live off her. But then he asked her for a large sum of money, referring to the fact that he allegedly got involved in a murky story and was in debt. She gave him the money, of course. But at the same time, she hired a detective to follow the young lover. And that's when she found out how easy and fun he was to sit down her money in clubs. With girls of easy virtue, the woman threw Alex out of her house without even giving him a peep for his own good. Didn't want to work either, so he had to find himself a new cash cow. He found out about Kathy in a club, having met there with a Bolshie who worked at a movie studio. Having had too much to drink, she called him about her colleague, abandoned with a child, who, however, everything is easy for her, as she does not need money. Cautiously inquired about the details from neighbors Kathy and Alex. Was pleasantly surprised to learn that she owns a huge 2-bedroom apartment. How much could such an apartment be worth? I can't even imagine. This time Alex decided not to hurry and to approach the matter more carefully, so to speak, consciously. He even got a job near Kathy's house, found out what time she walks with the child. And then the man patiently walked by, looking for the right moment for acquaintance. And then the perfect opportunity presented itself. Thomas fell. The presence of the child did not frighten Alex at all, because he knew perfectly well. The easiest way to get to a mom's heart is through her kid. If the child likes you, the mother likes you. So Alex began his acquaintance flirting with the boy. If he wanted, he found common language with children, although he couldn't stand these children. Then Alex began to show persistence. The man spent most of his time with Thomas and saw perfectly well that Kathy liked it. And the boy did not want to let Uncle Alex go at all. And that was good for him, too. It was just a pity that tomorrow he had to go to that hateful job again. Well, not for that. He'd come to Washington to be an errand boy. He had far-reaching plans. The children's party was over, and the guests had dispersed. Kathy invited some of her colleagues from the movie studio with young children. Thomas could not tear himself away from the many presents, but the day was too eventful, and the boy fell asleep cuddling the talking teddy bear given by Uncle Alex. Nina helped Kathy clean the apartment, but she was in no hurry to leave. She really wanted to discuss Alex. I see the salesman's been coming around a lot. Did you two have a thing? No, well, I'm willing to think about it. Alex really likes Thomas, and that's the most important thing. And Robert left us, and I can't stop thinking about him. But it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe to get it out of my head. Robert, that's exactly what I need, Alex. Yes? Then again, I've got a boy growing up, and a boy always needs a male role model in front of him. Nina pondered her friend's words, slightly biting down on her lower lip as she considered Alex for herself. She was fine with him because she was only looking at his looks, but thinking about Alex as a life partner for Kathy. For some reason, that thought made the girl uneasy. Kathy, take your time. Alex, of course, is a handsome young man, nice to talk to, funny, likes to mess around with Thomas. That's all fine, but you know what's bugging me? He's too good. I'd say he's perfect. I don't understand why, and the reality of it really bothers me. There's no such thing as a man without flaws. Robert has plenty of them, and Alex looks like he has them. but they're just not there at all. There's no such thing, especially not out of the blue. He showed up here in the apartment of a single woman with a baby. Doesn't that scare you? Kathy laughed and put her arm around her friend's shoulders. It's just more pressure. Or maybe it's jealousy. I know it very well, and I wanted to get Alex myself, but it so happened that he liked me better. Well, then it's not fate. Girlfriend, you'll meet someone else. Everything will be fine for you. Itch and was quiet for a while, and then changed the subject to discussing how much fun Thomas's birthday had been. She originally thought that talking about Alex would end it. She realized that her words could be seen as jealousy, and that makes sense in their situation. Except it wasn't. Nina wasn't jealous at all. She sincerely loved Kathy and would have been glad for her happiness, would have yielded to her this Alex herself, if she had been sure that he was really what he wanted to seem. But here was her intuition telling her that he wasn't. A couple months later, Alex moved in with Kathy. Their relationship began about 2 weeks after Thomas's birthday. One night, Alex didn't want to leave and took the initiative to kiss Kathy, and she gave in. That was the first time he stayed with her until morning. Then it began to happen more and more often. And eventually, Kathy offered Alex to stay with her so he wouldn't have to rent an apartment for nothing. What was the point of coming back to the rented place in the morning and then driving here to work? Alex agreed with great joy, and on the same day, he moved his belongings to her place in one small suitcase. The happiest of all was Thomas, who became very attached to Alex's uncle in the evenings. When he came back from work, the boy ran to meet him in the hallway and didn't leave the men the whole evening. Alex, to be honest, was tired of being a caring father. But he continued to play this role, gritting his teeth. When Nina came to visit them, she saw the idyll reigning in the house. But she did not talk about Alex with Kathy, believing that time will put everything in its place. Kathy has already suffered enough. She deserves happiness, and now she looks quite satisfied, although she didn't love the man. Nina knew that for a fact. After all, not at all like the friend she had been with Robert, whom she loved to the point of madness. Today, Kathy sat at the table and looked at the frozen dinner without blinking. Alex was late from work, which had never happened before. It had been 2 hours since the store where he worked had closed, but the man was still gone. She was about to call him when she'd heard the front door open. A woman had long ago handed him the keys that used to belong to Robert. Kathy heard the cheerful minutes of Thomas greeting Uncle Alex, but there was no usual cheerful greeting from the man. And into the kitchen where Kathy was waiting for him, heating up a stale dinner. Alex walked in sad and lost. And the fact that he refused and slumped down at the kitchen table, clasping his head with his hands. Did something happen? Asked a worried Kathy. Yes, it did. I don't even know how to tell you. Kathy, there's been a major shortage in our store. And not only am I being fired, but they're making me pay for it. And I had nothing to do with it. Alex bewilderedly spread his hands. I did not take anything at all, you know. And I have no money to pay the shortages. You know, I am what I am. I don't know how to save and save money. So what do we do now? Honestly, I don't know what to do. The man folded his hands on the table in front of him and laid his head down on them with a heavy sigh. Kathy was a little confused at first, but hurried to encourage the men. Lush, well, this can happen to anyone. Do not be so upset about it. The shortfall is big. Big, Kathy, very big. Just Alex, without raising his head, over $2,000. Where am I going to get that kind of money? I'll probably have to get a loan. She smiled. I think it is not necessary to rush into a headlong rush. It's not a very large sum. I think I can help you. I'll give you the money. Alex raised his head sharply and stared at Kathy's face in bewilderment. Do you really think it's a small amount of money? Look, there's a lot I don't know about you. You're probably on maternity leave. I don't think you make much. I'm sorry to pry. You don't have to answer, but where did you get the money? Yeah, it's no secret. My father left me a bank account and stocks that I get a monthly income from. So we can easily pay off the shortfall with you and not be disadvantaged in any way. No, I can't do that. Alex exclaimed, raising his eyebrows indignantly. It's a lot of money for me, and I'm not sure I can pay you back anytime soon. Kathy walked up to him and, putting her hands on his shoulders, said, "Don't worry, I'm helping you for free. Understand, money in life is not the most important thing we are together. And this is valuable to me. And by the way, I know why you couldn't save anything. You spent your entire paycheck buying toys for Thomas and me all the time. So take the money, pay your shortfall, and don't worry about a thing. And Kathy, I'm out of work, and I don't know when I'll get a new job. Would you want to live with me now? Like this?" But she just laughed again. "Do I give the impression of such a mercantile woman? I didn't live with you because of your salary." After much persuasion, Alex let himself be persuaded by taking money from Kathy. And the next day, he paid off the shortfall. He didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Of course, there was no actual shortfall. The man got fed up with the work, so he figured out a way to get out of there and still make a profit. For nothing. He spent so much time ducking Kathy with her vacation. He can finally get some rest, without having to get up in the morning hating the store. And he doesn't have to think about money. The main thing is not to relax and keep pussyfooting around with her and chewing on her back. Single women are so hungry for attention. After he quit his job, he started getting up at midnight. He'd eat and leave the house, supposedly to look for a new job. The man would return in the evening tired and disappointed. He complained to Kathy that he had to go to interviews all over Washington, and taking public transportation was too time-consuming. And one day, in a joking Alex way, he said, "It's a pity that you don't have a car, and you could drive me in search of a job, and you would develop a little. But you sit at home all day long." Kathy is instantly revitalized. "You know, I've been thinking about it. As long as Thomas and I lived alone, we didn't need cars. I don't like driving. I haven't driven in a long time. I'm used to it. You can buy a car, but you have to drive it. You'll do it." "Are you serious?" Alex exclaimed with joy. "You can afford a car. Definitely not kidding. But it would be just great. But if it, of course, will not cause tangible damage to your budget." "It won't," Kathy reassured the man. "Tomorrow we'll go with you to the car dealership and pick out a car for us." "Not us, but you," Alex corrected Kathy. "I don't want to be an accessory. This car will be yours alone. And I, if you wish, will be your personal driver." The next day at the car dealership, Kathy was looking at cars of medium price category. But Alex was magnetically drawn to expensive ones, especially to the client Gruzdev, whose purchase Kathy was not planning to buy. But seeing how joyfully her man's eyes glisten when he looks at this expensive car, the woman decided to take it. Although Alex discouraged, saying that he just dreams of such a car. That such a car is just a dream, and you can buy something simpler. Dreams should come true, smiled the woman and went to formalize the expensive purchase. When she and the manager of the car dealership sat down at the checkout table, Kathy realized with dismay that she had no documents with her. First, she dug through her purse, trying to find them there, and then she emptied the entire contents of her bag onto the table. But to no avail. There were no documents. How could she forget them at home? They were always in her purse. Alex the theatrical got upset. "Well, how could it be? We went to buy a car, and you forgot your documents at home. Now we have to drive home and back again. Thomas, I'm tired. I always carry my papers with me." Alex patted the people's pocket. Kathy looked at his son sitting in his arms. The child did look tired. And then a bold idea popped into her head. "Give me your papers. We'll put the car in your name." "No, no, no. Kathy, that's impossible. This car has to be yours." "Yes. Why does it have to be? Who decided that? Who cares who it's registered to? Give me the papers," I said. And Kathy held out her hand demandingly. The man reluctantly reached into his breast pocket, pulling out his paperwork until the last of it, while the manager did the paperwork. Alex shook his head and muttered, "No, this is still wrong." The manager, who was conducting the registration, went outside for a smoke and watched a brand new Land Cruiser roll out of the showroom. The gleams in the sun fell flat on its sides. The guy grinned and thought, why are women so stupid? After all, everything is so obvious. Behind the wheel of the car sat Alex's importance. He had already praised himself 100 times for his ingenuity. for having so thoughtfully put out of the stock bag all the documents. He's a brilliant strategist after all. Knows how to push a woman's buttons. Just a hint of baby fatigue and bam, he's got the car in his pocket. Now, even if things go wrong with Kathy, if she stops sponsoring him, he'll never get that car back. It's his property now, and you can't take it from him with your teeth. It had been quite some time since he bought the car, and Alex still couldn't find a job, and it seemed like he wasn't looking for one anymore. Quietly, living on Kathy's money, the woman was not bothered by it at all. On the contrary, she was glad that Alex was spending so much time with Thomas. Sometimes he left the house in the evenings, feeling the urge to go for a ride, as he put it. Kathy, who was afraid of high speed, was happy to stay at home. She had no objection to his trips. The man she loved needed privacy, and sometimes he needed to be alone. What's the big deal? But Nina objected. She was beginning to resent the state of affairs in Kathy's household. One evening when Alex went for a drive, Nina came to visit her godson and found them alone again. She started talking to her friends. "Kathy, are you really satisfied with everything? Your Alex hasn't thought about getting a job. And in fact, where he is, will rot alone in your car. You're sure he's alone? Why shouldn't I trust him?" Kathy objected, shrugging her shoulders. "He called us Matyushin with him. But Alex likes a lot of speed, and I don't like it, especially with a baby in the car. So I don't mind if he goes for a ride alone sometimes. Ride alone, live off you. Kathy, are you out of your mind?" "Nina, you know I don't like to make excuses either, but I'll make an exception for you. Let's start with the fact that he's looking for a job. But I wouldn't want to take the first job that comes along. Alex is a grown man, and I'd like a decent job with a high salary. And given that we are not poor, I do not rush him. Let the man is looking for something that will be to his liking. Well, as for trust, this I have already said. I trust him as myself, so I was not afraid to register the car on him." "You did something," Nina gasped in indignation. "What do you mean? Put it in his name." "Kathy, are you crazy? I didn't expect that from you. You know, whatever Robert did to you, I've been on his side lately. You're still legally married to him, and yet you're living with another man. I don't think you should even tell your husband that. And the money. Robert, I send you money every month, a lot of it, by the way. And you're buying another man's car. Has anyone ever told me that about you before? I wouldn't have believed it. Kathy, what's going on with you when your friend says that?" Kathy's already losing her temper, raising her voice. "You know what? If you think I'm spending Robert's money on my man, I'm not. Out of what Robert sends me, I haven't spent a penny on Thomas. I opened an account, and all his father's money is transferred there. And with Alex, we live on my money. And you've quickly forgotten what Robert did to us. You're the one who comforted me and called him a jerk. Why now? Is he all white and fluffy now? Yes, if you must know, I still love him and I can't get over it. If Robert left me alone at night like that, I'd be nervous. But when Alex does it, I don't care. He's a very nice man, though, and I hope I can love him someday because honestly, I do." Kathy was quiet for a moment and then continued in a much calmer voice. "You're probably right about Robert and I not being divorced. I owe it to him to let him know that I have someone else. At least it'll be fair to them. Let them file for divorce. You know when he said he was taking it slow? At first I was happy, hoping he'd come to his senses, want to look at his son, couldn't stand it and come back to us. But with each passing month, the hope faded, and now there is no hope at all. So maybe it's time for a divorce. You're right about that. I believed he'd come back to you too." Nina said quietly, "I know, I'm pretty sure Robert loves you, but he's a very strange man. It's as if he has a stone for a heart. Does he never once want to look at his son? I don't understand. But both women were wrong. Very wrong. Robert wanted to see both Kathy and his son, but he was a man of his own oddities and unwilling to compromise his principles. Once in his life, he swore to himself not to have any more children. To him, it seemed Kathy betrayed him, secretly became pregnant, then choosing not a life with him together, but a child. But the man couldn't help himself. He wanted to see those he considered his family, even if they didn't live together. Sometimes the desire to see them became unbearable. So the man traveled to Washington. He sought his son, saw him a few times from the sidelines, stayed away so as not to disturb Kathy's heart and give her false hope of his return. But with each of his visits, the protective armor of Robert died away, and hesitation appeared in her soul. So when Robert was offered a permanent job in Germany and a residence permit, the man went to Washington again before deciding. This time he wanted to approach Kathy and his son, talk, and then decide what he really wanted. When the man drove a cab into the yard and was already paying the driver, he saw his wife and son coming out of the entrance. But they were coming out of there. They were not alone. There was a man with him, holding his son's hand. The three of them got into an expensive car parked outside the entryway and drove off in an unknown direction. Not a muscle flinched on Robert's face. When he told the cabbie, "I changed my mind and we're going back," pulling out of the yard, the driver could not even guess what storm was raging in the soul of his passenger, how his heart was crusted with ice, and what thoughts were in his head. "You're late. You're certainly late. Kathy, beautiful woman. Did I really think she'd be alone forever? And why should she be alone? After all, I never gave her hope of my return. The man walking beside her looks good, but the child or not. He's got a nice car too, so he's well off. Well, Kathy deserves her happiness. Let her be lucky, and I'll go back to Germany for good this time. That's what I should do." It was only now that Robert realized how much he wanted to be behind the wheel of the very car that had taken his family away, or any other car or no car, for that matter, just to be near them. To spit on all his principles and his oaths. But it's too late. It's too late. And Kathy and Alex went to the supermarket that night to get groceries. It was probably the only place they ever went together. Many times Kathy suggested that Alex leave the boy with Nina to go to the movies or the theater where she and Robert often went together. But Alex was not interested. He refused, and the woman resigned herself to stopping calling him anywhere. After buying groceries, the couple returned home. Alex took the bags into the hallway and ran off, telling Kathy that he would be gone for a while. To air out, the man quickly jumped out of the entryway and pinged the alarm cars. He had already opened the driver's door when he heard a loud and caustic exclamation behind him. "But hello, hubby. I finally found you." Alex looked back frightened to see his wife in front of him. He had always been a little afraid of this overbearing, cruel woman. Years ago, she had married him to her, when her pregnancy became known, but after living with her for 8 years, Alex had run away, leaving her with 2 children. This life was not for him. What did he see? Work, work, and more work. And the wife was always not enough. She was always nagging Alex and forcing him to take part-time jobs. For 2 years, he has been hiding quite safely from his wife and from the heavy family life, pulling all the veins out of him. "How did you find me?" he asked. "What does it matter? Let it remain my secret." Jenna laughed rudely. "Is there nothing else you want to ask me?" Alex looked around again. It seemed Kathy should be busy right now, sorting through grocery bags. But what the hell was the matter? What if she looked out the window and saw him and Jenna? How would he explain all this then? The man quickly offended the cars and opened the passenger door hospitably. "Idem pro Katja, but it's a ride. Why don't we get a ride?" Answered the woman and threateningly spit on the seat. With admiration began to examine the interior of the car. "And you are not bad," Alex settled down. "The car is gorgeous. And how are your children doing?" "I haven't thought about it. What do they eat? What are they wearing? Are they sick? You run away and don't pay child support. That's a good daddy." Alex focused on the road out of the yard and remained silent. He had to gather his thoughts, how to behave with Jenna. What to do next? What did she know? Did she know about Kathy? The man glanced at his wife, who was examining the contents of the stub. And when he saw Kathy's things in it, he slammed it shut with indignation. Noticing her husband's slanted glance at her, she shrieked, "What's the matter with the year? And do I know about your grandmother? You can bet your ass I do. I know everything, how you live at her expense, not working anywhere, how on her typewriter you tell. Before I approached you, I made inquiries." Alex sighed heavily. But you see the light. You yourself know everything. You understand everything. Yes, I live at her expense. But I don't love her. Jenna squealed again. What are you talking about? You don't love her? I don't care. What do you think? Am I jealous? It's stupid to be jealous of you. You've never loved anyone. I know exactly why you're living with that woman. You didn't love me and you didn't love your children, but they're your children nonetheless. Do you have an obligation to them? I mean, you tried to file for divorce, but that's never going to happen. Remember that. The man was silent. He understood what his wife was getting at. She wanted money. Just money. And where would he get it? He was living off Kathy himself. Jenna didn't like Alex's silence, and she shouted even louder. Why don't you say something? Do you even know how much child support you owe? We're not divorced, but I filed for alimony. I could sick the bailiffs on you right now for taking so long to track you down. But I'm not going to do that just yet. That's how you're going to pay me. Your new girl's rich, fancy apartment car, and we don't have a dime to our name. Your kids, don't they deserve better? Anyway, we talked this chicken into selling. You'll take the apartment. She has all the money. We'll go away. We'll go far away. You'll live with us. I won't let you go anymore. What are you talking about? Alex was scared. How is it to persuade to sell the apartment? What do you think a crazy person would do? Kathy will never agree to that. She's already looking at me askew lately. I'm even thinking of getting a simple job, to be honest. And you think I care? Jenna smirked. Think of something. Fool your Kathy for your kids. You haven't forgotten that you have two of them, a boy and a girl. Name them. Come on, Jenna, stop wrinkling your nose like a toothache. Alex, I never forgot about the kids. But what am I supposed to do? You were always short of money. What was I supposed to do? Well, I can't, as you say, and work 3 jobs. Knowing you can't do anything but twirl your tail in front of women. So keep on wagging it. But she's doing it so that me and the kids will be well off. Do you have any idea how much your Kathy's apartment could be worth? You and I could buy a decent house in the country and live on the rest. I don't know. Lunch. Maybe we can work out some kind of business deal. Jenna, do you hear yourself? Alex howled. She won't sell the apartment. I can't make her do it. She'll lie. What is there men in such cases usually lie? Say that you have debts, that you're sick? Need money for treatment? But Alex still shook his head negatively. She will not believe me. I'm all the time in front of her eyes. And even if she would believe me, she will not pay neither debts nor treatment. We've only been living together for a few months, and she has no strong feelings for me. I can see that. She may like me, but that's about it. I know how a woman behaves when she loves. Kathy doesn't love me. Jenna lowered her head and suddenly blushed. When she spoke again, tears were almost audible in her voice. Yes, you know when you're loved, and I loved you very much, you felt it. And after me, there must have been women who fell in love with you. And you betrayed them. To me, to the children of everyone you cared about. But only I know your true nature. You're a man capable of loving only yourself and valuing your well-being above everything else. Taking care of your family was beyond you. That's right. Did the kids miss you? They kept asking me where Dad was and what I should have told them. Daddy cowardly ran away and hid from us because he doesn't want to feed you. All right, Jenna, that's enough. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. It doesn't help. There's really nothing I can do. All I can do is beg. From Kathy a small amount now and then and give it to you. But there's no way to get her to sell the apartment. No, it's not enough. Very seriously answered Jenna. I will not live patiently on your meager handouts. I've already had enough from bread to water. Now I need everything at once. Suit yourself, spin. Think about it, but do what I say. Otherwise, I'll come straight to your apartment with the bailiffs. Now, let's go to the kids. Let them remember what your daddy looks like too. Maybe they'll have a little conscience. What am I talking about? What kind of conscience do you have? All right, let's go see the kids. Speaking of money, how much do you have right now? We've got to eat something and pay the rent. Kathy was sitting in a chair trying to read a book. Thomas was playing nearby, rolling his toy cars on the floor, but the woman's thoughts were occupied not with her son, but with Alex, who was watching soccer on the couch in the next room. It was the man's main occupation when he was at home to lie on the couch and stare at the TV. Even Thomas felt the detachment, began to pick up less often, were separated with requests to play with him. The woman slowly began to realize that in her mighty effort to forget Robert, she had let a man into her home without recognizing him. Bought on an outer shell, but the shell, it had to be admitted, was good. Nothing to fault. Kathy was in no hurry to make final conclusions, but she began to probe the ground and from time to time asked how the job search was going. Alex waved away, answering that he had not found anything suitable yet. "What are you looking for?" Kathy asked the question head-on. "What kind of job would be right for you?" Alex hesitated, surprised at the assertiveness of the women. His vague answers had satisfied her before. Had she begun to suspect something? Men with a charming smile approached Kathy, then poked her on the cheek. "Well, so appropriate," playfully. Conspired he to spend more time with you and for the paycheck to be normal. "I want to provide for you and Thomas fully, not just live next door." "So you're looking for a job where you can spend as little time as possible and still get a big paycheck?" Kathy asked with a chuckle. Kathy, well, there's no need to exaggerate. Alex frowned a little. At that time, Thomas, hitting the corner of the table, and Alex immediately rushed over to him. Finishing the conversation, that evening and the next few days he did not leave the child again. At first it was as if he had come to his senses, but it already seemed suspicious. And now the woman looked at the book, but could not read a single line. Thoughts kept jumping to Alex. Was she wrong about him? The woman slammed the book, shut in one sharp movement, and standing up resolutely, headed for the next room. The thought occurred to her how to check men. "Lesh, I was thinking we should sell our car," she said, coming to the sofa, where the man was lying. He seemed to be thrown on the spot, and he abruptly sat up and stared at Kathy. "What happened? Why? What's wrong with our car?" "Well, I guess we can't afford it. The tax is too high. And I made the mistake of buying such an expensive vehicle. It hit my budget. I'd say it's a big one. Let's sell it and buy something simpler." Alex was seething with anger. It was a car he'd originally considered his own and couldn't afford to sell. Besides, Kathy would probably take the money from the sale. But now he just couldn't refuse. Otherwise, it would be necessary to take the car and run away from this woman. And before, that's probably what he would have done. And now he couldn't. He was under a lot of pressure from Jenna, constantly sending threatening texts. So it was in Alex's best interest not to undermine Kathy's trust, so he responded. "What can you say? Sell means sell. Let me put an ad out. I'll meet the buyer myself." A somewhat calm woman left the room, and Alex thought to advertise doesn't mean to sell at all. "Can we stall? That's what I'll do. I'll point out the flaws to the buyers myself so they won't buy. Or you can inflate the price. The main thing is to meet with them without Kathy." Alex felt like a cornered animal. Jenna was pushing him, and it was bad timing. Kathy's eyes were starting to open. Lying on the couch was not an option right now. So the man jumped up and went to the baby. He was supposed to be meeting with the entourage today, and to leave quietly without causing Kathy's displeasure. It was necessary to pay attention to Thomas. After playing with the child for about an hour, Alex told Kathy that he would be away for a while, and the woman nodded silently. Alex drove to his wife with a heavy heart. He had nothing to please her, but every time crossing the threshold of the filming house, which was rented by Jenna with his children, the man realized that his wife was right about something. Why do their children have to live in this room? And Thomas is going crazy in there. Kathy doesn't know what toys to buy him, what to feed him. This one's got a back, a hernia, everything. You can't surprise him with food. What did that snot-nosed snot deserve, and what did Kathy deserve? She didn't earn that money herself, so in Alex's opinion, it's only fair that his kids have a good life too. Even though he left them with ease, he realized that they were his children, and he had a different attitude towards them than towards strangers. Jenna, on the other hand, met her husband with a frown. "Well, what am I happy about? Have you thought of anything?" Alex gave her a disgruntled look. "I didn't think of anything." Not only that Kathy began to look at me, my every action looks at me like under a microscope. She's been hounding me for a job. It's not gonna work out with you and me, Jenna. I knew you weren't capable of anything. Here's an idea. Think about what your Kathy cares about more than anything else in the world. What she would give all her money for without even thinking about it. Alex immediately answered yes, of course, my son. What else? Like all women, girls in general are narrow-minded, fixated on their offspring. Jenna looked at her husband almost with hatred. I'd kill you for saying that. Now you've shown your attitude toward your children. Oh, come on, he waved his hand. Why am I surprised? I know what you're like. Now, back to Kathy and her son. Suppose they steal him and demand a ransom for him. What will she do, sell her apartment? Alex, the thought of it broke out in a cold sweat. He jumped up so sharply from the chair he was sitting on that it fell to the floor. Are you completely crazy? What are you suggesting? I may like to live at other people's expense, but it's not a crime. I don't steal from anyone, they give me everything. And I'm not going to jail. Jenna, I'm not a criminal. Well, let's just say I'm not going to jail either. That's why we got to make sure I don't go to jail. You said it yourself, this broad's starting to look at you. It won't be long before she throws you out with your ass naked. And then what? I ain't gonna feed your kids alone no more, and I ain't letting you go. We'll go back to scraping by. You're gonna have to get a job, I mean. And not just sitting around, but actually working. Maybe even physically. So you might want to think about taking a chance. Jenna, what are you, stupid? She goes to the police, they'll be on to you and me in a heartbeat. That's why your job is to make sure she doesn't go to the police. You'll be with her 24/7 to talk her out of it. Send her a piece of hair from her head, her non-visible, like Thomas, and say, go to the police. Next up is the ear. I saw that in some movie, or something like that. And you're gonna scare her and talk her out of going to law enforcement. And if she's desperate enough to go to the police, we'll get her baby back. Alex left that meeting with the same heavy heart. He had a plan he didn't like very much. A few days later, Kathy was walking with Thomas on the playground in the yard of her own house. When she got the call from Alex, he had left to go to the pharmacy to get some painkillers. He had a terrible headache, so he called her for advice. What's the best drug to buy? They talked for a long time. He was stalling as long as he could. I asked him about one drug or the other. Eligibility. The woman, distracted by the conversation, for a few minutes, lost sight of her son, and then looking around, did not find him near. At first, Kathy wasn't too bothered by this. She thought that the child was just playing hide and seek with her, and was now sitting behind the slide or behind the house. But the alarm began to grow and gradually turned to panic. When she ran, all the playground along and across did not find the child on it. Returning from the drugstore, Alex found Kathy in hysterics. She approached other moms walking on the playground with their kids and asked them if anyone had seen her son. All the women looked sympathetically, but shook their heads negatively. And only one said that she had probably seen a boy with similar clothes. And he was being led out of the courtyard of the apartment building by a woman in a hood. But this witness did not see her face and did not pay any attention to those who passed by, because the child was walking calmly. Hearing this, Kathy nervously pulled the phone out of her pocket and in a broken voice asked Alex police how to call the police from a cell phone, says rather. Alex did not have time to answer anything because the phone in Kathy's hands rang. The woman dropped the call, not wanting to talk to an unknown caller. She had to urgently call the police, but she did not have time to dial the number again. Another call came in. Answer it, Kathy, Alex said insistently. Answer it, it might be important. Kathy obediently raised the phone to her ear. Alex saw her face twisted. Horror at the words she heard in the receiver. The moms walking with their children twitched as they heard her hysterical scream. Who are you? Give me back Thomas. Give me back my son. Then Kathy put the phone down and looked at it confused, as if not believing what she had just heard. Then Alex jumped up to her, grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. Kathy, who called? What did they tell you? They said they had Thomas and told me not to call the police, or I'd never see him again, the woman answered, unnaturally calm and loud. Alex looked around, worried that no one would hear her words. He took the woman by the shoulders and tried to lead her to the entrance. Let's go, let's go. Let's go up to the apartment and discuss everything there. What apartment? Kathy looked at him in astonishment. What am I going to do there without my son? I'm not leaving here until I find him. Alex again, loss of cars, some women. Kathy credits himself with kidnapping him. We're not going to find him here. Let's go upstairs, and you can tell me all about it. The woman, like a mechanical doll, let Alex drive her home. There he sat her in a chair and brought her a glass of water. And then he asked her to tell clearly what you were told on the phone. Whose voice was it? Male, female? Come on, give me all the details. It was neither male nor female. Computerized. Modified, probably through some kind of program. In short, it was Kathy on the highway. This voice told me that they have my son and that we are being watched and our phones tapped. If only we would try to contact the police. I will never see my son again. It was all of a sudden a woman came by. She was hysterical. She continued to scream something coherent and tossed aside the glass of water offered by Alex. The man had to slap her in the face to bring the woman to her senses, capturing the instant reddening of her cheek. She stared at him in bewilderment. Come to your senses, he told her. This is no time to be hysterical. Thomas needs a cool-headed mother. What were you told? What were they kidnapping him for? What were their demands? Demands I don't understand, Kathy interjected. Oh yes, demands. Yes, they did. They said I had to give them money. They'll tell me the amount later. They call me back in the morning. Until then, they told me to sit tight and stay put. That's what they said, you know, don't do anything. So don't do anything, Kathy. We don't know who these people are. Aren't you scared about Thomas? You keep telling yourself to call the police. Have you ever considered that they're carrying out their threats and hurting the baby? How are you going to live with that? No way, Kathy shrugged. I can't live without my boy, but I can't just sit around and wait. I can't, you know. I have to. Alex tried to sober the woman up. Let's wait for the next call of kidnappers and find out exactly what they want from you. Money is understandable. The question is, how much will they ask for? Kathy, if it's no secret, how much do you have in that account you were talking about? Can you pay these kidnappers? When the woman said the amount, Alex inwardly gasped. He didn't expect such a thing. And also money from the sale of the apartment. So he estimated in his mind, even if he sold the apartment at a lower value because of the urgency, plus money from the account. The amount of money was so much that it made the man dizzy. And Jenna was right, that money could be used to live the rest of his life without poverty, if he didn't spend it, of course. Alex calmed Kathy, who was born like a shadow in the apartment, and from time to time began to sob. And close to midnight, he put her to bed on positive sedatives. The man himself was lying next to her, fighting sleep. He was afraid he would fall asleep, and Kathy would call the police after all. She'd been dying to do it all day, and the man was not wrong. Lying down for about half an hour, she got out of bed and went into the kitchen, covering herself behind her. Following her, the man had time to see her dialing the police number and immediately snatched the phone from her hands. Kathy, what are you doing? Don't you realize you could kill your son with that call? It may sound cruel, but it's true. The woman, despite the large amount of sedative she drank, became hysterical again. I don't know what's best. I'm afraid. I can't sleep without the priest. And it was only at 3:00 a.m. that the sedative did its job, and Kathy fell asleep. Then Alex got out of bed and quietly left the apartment. He went downstairs, stepped out of the entryway, and carefully placed a small, inconspicuous box under the bench. That was the plan. And then, sitting down on that very bench, he called Jenna. So far, everything is going as we agreed, he said curtly, but she was trying to call the police again. I'm afraid to leave her alone. When you call in the morning, be more convincing. Put more fear into her. By the way, how's the kid? What's going to happen to him? Your kid? He was better worried about his own, whining all day long, asking to see his mom. Now they're gone. You better answer me. Did you find out how much you can ask for? How much is in her account? I found out, Jenna. I found out. I'll tell you right now, you're freaking out. Maybe you're right. Maybe you and I didn't go through all this for nothing. It was only 6:30 on the clock, and Kathy was already sitting with the phone in her hands, staring at it as if it were a hypnotist. She stared into the dark screen, waiting for the call to ring. Alex coaxed the woman to put the phones down, to drink coffee, to calm down a little, but Kathy didn't listen to his entreaties. The bell rang at 8:30. Waiting. Asked the emotionless mechanical voice. Waiting, and you tried to call the police. We warned you. We know all about you. You and your Haldane are under 24-hour surveillance. You shouldn't have. Oh, you shouldn't have tried that. Go down to your front porch. There's a box under the bench with a present in it for you. I'll call you back later. The phone rang a short beep. Kathy, what a pity. I jumped up and ran out of the apartment, and Alex followed her with shaking hands. The woman pulled a small black box from under the bench, but she couldn't open it. She stared at it. She was afraid to take the lid off, afraid of what she might see inside. Alex opened the box for her, and inside was a piece of dark, clean hair. It was Thomas's hair. Kathy recognized them immediately and burst into tears of relief. It was just hair. The woman was very afraid to see something worse in there. The second call came as soon as Kathy and Alex returned to the apartment. Did you find our present? We thought we'd take pity on you for a while. Next time it won't be hair. Believe me, you didn't take our words seriously. We have nothing to lose. Have you decided what's more important, money or your kid's life? How much do you want for Thomas? Stuttering voice? Kathy asked, and when she heard the answer, she shouted into the phone. But I don't have that much, just don't have that much. Then the woman put the phone down and looked at Alex with eyes full of terror. Disconnected. Confused, she said. Only they called such a sum, where I will take so much. And they also said that the term I have a week in a week I have to give them all this. Yes, the amount, of course, is unbearable, said Alex. Of course, you have it in your account, but you have to get the rest. Listen, what about the apartment? You can sell the apartment. Suddenly he exclaimed, as if he had just had an epiphany. The apartment, it's in your name. Well, of course it's in my name. Who else to sell the place to just never occurred to her. But first of all, the sale would take a long time, well over a week. If only the cost is lower to make 2 agencies to turn. The woman grabbed her head. And then what are we going to do? Where will my son and I live? Don't worry. Alex stepped up to Kathy and hugged her. We'll figure it out somehow. I'll go to work. I'm with you. The important thing is to get our boy back. What if they don't bring him back? What if I give them everything I have and they don't give me the baby? Then it's too late to go to the police. It has to be done now. I don't know. I don't understand anything. Kathy continued holding her head and swaying bitterly from side to side. What is the right thing to do? I'm ready to give everything. But where are the guarantees? Alex, horror recoiled from the woman. What are you, Kathy? What police? Don't you care about your son's life at all? You did not understand the meaning of the surprise in the box. Give them the money and be happy that you had it, and you were able to buy the life of your own child for them. Let's get down to business. Let's better think about the best way to get things done quickly. First of all, we need to start by cashing out your account. Or should I sell the apartments first? Yeah, the condos, of course, I can cash out anytime I want. Well, or in a couple of days. Having previously submitted an application, it's certainly not long. But the apartments are going to the agency right now. Kathy couldn't sit still. She needed something to do. And if not the police, then it was urgent to start collecting money. And sometime later, Nina was moving near Kathy's entrance with a huge bag of Lego Constructor in her hands she had bought for her godson. It was the 10th time she had picked up Kathy, but she wasn't picking up the phone, and Nina didn't know what to do. Calls to the intercom didn't bring any results either. Having tried for 40 minutes near the entrance and not stopping calling her friend, Nina decided to leave and come back later. And suddenly she saw a familiar car driving into the yard, barely waited until she parked and rushed to the exit Land Cruiser Kathy. Well, where are you guys driving around? Why aren't you answering your phone, Kathy? What's wrong with your phone? she asked a disgruntled Alex. It was he who had persuaded her not to answer Nina's call, explaining that it was better not to tell her friend anything. She's too chatty. Not noticing her friend's frowning face, Alex started to open the back door of the car with the words, "Where's my sweet boy? Where's Thomas?" But staring at the empty child's seat, she was surprised. "Kathy, Thomas, where did you leave him with who?" "Come, let's go upstairs to our place," Kathy replied glumly. And not only now she noticed her grief-stricken face. They went up to the apartment, went into the room, and Kathy sank down on the sofa like an inflatable doll, from which all the air had been abruptly let out, and once again began to sob for her tears. Nina could barely understand what her friend was telling her. But Alex sat down next to her, and he complimented Kathy's story. Nina couldn't sit. She walked around the couch from side to side. And when she heard the whole story, she exclaimed, "So it turns out that if you completely cash out the account and sell the apartment, the amount will be just right. Is that right? Don't you think it's weird?" "What's weird about it?" Alex answered instead of Kathy. "These kidnappers said that they were watching our every move, and it's not surprising that they know about the account. They probably made inquiries before the kidnapping." Nina gave Alex a scornful look for eyes in death, so it made the man uncomfortable. And then he said, "Alex, can't you leave the room? I want to talk to my friend, alone." He didn't move from his seat and glanced defiantly at Nina, and then at Kathy, as if looking to her for support and not wanting to get out. But Kathy only asked to get out. "Please, hurt for souls." The man got up from the couch and with his whole appearance showed his displeasure. Left the room, leaving it some time quietly opened the door, fearing that the man would overhear their conversation. And she was right. He was standing near the door, pretending to correct something on the nightstand, and at the sight of Nina sticking herself out, he retreated into the other room. It was only afterward that he closed the door tightly behind him. Nina started talking to Kathy. "Kathy, what's going on? Your son was kidnapped, and to raise the money for the ransom, you need to sell the apartment." "Who suggested that?" "Alex," Kathy answered quietly. "Strange why I'm not surprised. He offered to sell the apartment, but he didn't offer to sell the car." "Yeah, of course not. It's registered to him. You still don't find his behavior odd?" "Not as strange as it seems. I didn't tell you this, but I've been doubting him for a while now. We even put in an ad to sell the car, and then this and this. But I don't think he could steal Thomas. Is he really that sneaky? I mean, who knows? I'm not sure about anything anymore. I can't think about anything but my son. And I know that even if Alex is involved, I'll give them all the money they ask for. Everything I have, just so they can bring my boy back to me alive and unharmed. I've dashed so many times to call the police, but I'm scared, Nike, I'm scared." Ta looked at her friend with pity. She understood her. She wouldn't call the police herself, because it's scary to make a mistake and jeopardize a little boy's life. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Robert looked around, as if he hadn't forgotten anything. Suitcases stowed, all bridges burned, no way back, and a one-way ticket bought. Last day in Washington. Tomorrow, he leaves for permanent residence in Germany. This decision, of course, came hard to him. But after seeing Kathy with the man, he realized there was nothing holding him here anymore. The only thing he longed for before he left was to see Kathy one last time with his son. But to his great regret, he was unable to do so. For several hours he had lingered near the playground where they usually walked, but for some reason no one had shown up. Robert sighed heavily. The tickets were for tomorrow. Robert sighed heavily. There was a feeling of wrongness or a wrong decision. Well, what else could he do? Stay, try to get back into their lives? As if she was perfectly happy being a man again right now. Robert had caused her enough pain as it was. It wasn't worth disturbing her again. He didn't know how to spend his last day in the city. But then his phone rang from an unknown number, and the woman's voice in the receiver sounded familiar. But Robert didn't recognize it until the caller introduced herself. "I'm Nana, Kathy's friend. I realize it's stupid to call you, because you're far away and you can't help me." Robert Pitty's heart was troubled by the woman's voice, and it was clear that the news was not good. But he interrupted her. "I'm going to Washington." "What happened?" "Something with Kathy?" Nina suddenly fell silent. The woman hadn't expected Robert to be in Washington and had called him for advice. Although she realized Kathy would object, so be it. Nina couldn't just sit back and wait when her godson was in danger. Kathy's not thinking straight right now. She looks like a somnambulist. They had a suspicion that Alex was drugging her friend with some powerful sedatives so that she would act on his orders. Robert is not, in fact, a stranger. He is Thomas's father and, in Nina's opinion, had a right to know everything. When Robert was beginning to lose patience with the pause in the phone, Nina's congestion happened only not with Kathy. "With Thomas, I can't tell you everything over the phone. Come to my place, memorize the address." And when Robert hung up the phone, he felt like he was suffocating, as if time had suddenly reversed and he was back there, to the bedside of his dying daughter. He was feeling the same sensation now. It was exactly what he feared when he decided not to have any more children. To feel the pain and helplessness of losing his child again and not being able to do anything about it. The man huffed, looked around, and caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror. His lost, faded look. What on earth is this? He doesn't know anything yet about what happened to Thomas. "I've got to pack up and get the books right away. No, I'm not losing this baby. That's the only thing I'm going to fight for, whatever happens there," Robert thought and started to call a cab. Alex, however, looked at Kathy, settled to one point, and sat unmoving. She was sitting at the kitchen table, clasping a frozen glass of tea between her palms. The woman had long since forgotten about him and sat immersed in herself as if in a trance. Nina was not mistaken. There was a reason her friend had been acting so strangely the last few days. Alex, however, gave her a lot of sedatives. The woman became inhibited after them, but so she succumbed to his compulsion more easily. He insisted on waiting, and she patiently waited and waited for the main event in her life. For the moment, she had to take an evening call from an unknown caller, hoping to hear her son's voice in the receiver. She begged for its mechanical voice, rash her threats every night. And finally, the kidnappers took pity. Now she was allowed to hear a few short words from her son. "Mommy, take me away." That's what Kathy heard. Then the kidnapper took the receiver away from him, and the conversation was usually over. But Thomas's bitter cry, bursting out with words whenever he was allowed to talk to his mother, was always in Kathy's ears. Alex's deal to sell the apartment was dragging on. There were unforeseen complications, and it became clear that he would not be able to sell the apartment in a week. Kathy had acquaintances who could help him with registration and discharge. Alex did not go into details. The main thing for him was to know that the case was progressing. When it became clear that the apartment would not sell quickly, Kathy, having waited for the kidnapper's call, tearfully begged for more time, explaining why this was happening. And the kidnappers came through for her again. Of course they did. How could they not? Because Alex talked to Jenna beforehand, warned her about the sale. The man was scared, and he suggested to his wife to take the money that Kathy had on the account and not to wait for the sale of the apartment. But Jenna had gotten the taste for it, and the money didn't seem to be enough. She wanted it all, although I'm a psychologist. And about Thomas, who, as she expressed it, but does not stop asking for his mother, no one looked at her rented apartment. The apartment was paid in advance, and the neighbors knew that it was rented by a woman with 2 children. So they would not be surprised by the crying from there. But this crying irritated the light itself. In one of her phone conversations with her husband, she said she had found a way to tame it. Alex suspected that Jenna was beating the baby, but he didn't care. The main thing was not to draw attention to herself, so the neighbors wouldn't suspect anything. Frozen. Me with a glass of tea in my hands. Kathy had set it down on the table when, lying on the table, the phone suddenly rang. She knew it couldn't have been the kidnappers. They called in the evenings, and now it was morning. And glancing at the screen, Kathy was convinced of that. It was Nina. The woman spoke to her briefly and hung up, saying, "Okay, I'll be right there." "Where are you going?" Alex was worried. "Nina asked me to come to her." "Why?" "You know that the kidnappers are watching us. Maybe we shouldn't go out unnecessarily." "But if they are, They'll know I'm going to my friend's house. She's withdrawn all her savings and wants to give them to me." Kathy, though a little, rose resolutely from the table, putting the untouched glass of tea on it. "Nina asked me to come alone, so I'll probably call a cab. I'm afraid to drive myself. I think you know what I mean." "What kind of nonsense is that?" Alex exclaimed. "Why do you have to take a cab when we have a car? And why is it, let me ask you, that Nina wants you to come alone? But I think you know she doesn't like you very much, but she doesn't hide it." "Oh, you'd think I'd like her." Disgruntled, he muttered. "But there's no need to call a cab anyway. I'll drive you and stay in the car. I won't go in to see her." "But if that's the case, then well, let's go reconciliatory," smiled Kathy. When Alex drove Kathy to Nina's house and stayed waiting for her in the car, his anxiety subsided little by little. But what's the big deal? His best friend wants to help give the money that is so desperately needed right now. Will most likely give away everything she has. That makes sense. After all, Nina is also attached to that snotty, not a number. The man was sure he wouldn't make any sudden moves like calling the police. She is as afraid as Kathy of making an irreparable mistake. And Kathy, developing in the hallway, noticed that her friend was very nervous for some reason. Walking into the room, she immediately realized what the reason was. Robert was there. He had jumped out of his seat at the sight of Kathy and now stood looking at her silently. Kathy turned around abruptly and looked at her friend, who was shifting from foot to foot, behind her. "Nina, what is this? Why did you tell him everything you did?" All her congestion from taking the drug instantly flew off Kathy. She was shaken all over by Robert's presence and the act done without his knowledge. Though she felt a little guilty about it, she immediately raised her voice too. "Yes, I called Robert and called him and told him everything, because I think he has a right to know, and so does his son." His son. As far as he was concerned, Robert didn't want to know. Kathy came from them and tried not to even look in the direction of the silently standing spouse. "He didn't need us. He left us. He doesn't care." "No, he does care." Nina argued with her, "and he is not a stranger to you." The woman lowered her voice and continued much more quietly. "I know Kathy. I saw him in the hospital when you were in labor. He was there until the end. I didn't tell you that, but I know for a fact a man can't be so worried if he doesn't care." Kathy came into the conversation. "Robert, our disagreement with you is not that important right now. What's more important is finding Thomas and bringing him back." "Thomas," Kathy whispered. "Do you know Thomas? He's your son, and you've never even met him." "I have." Robert lowered his head and continued without looking Kathy in the eye. "I've seen you a few times, watched you when you were walking in the yard. But I didn't come over, afraid to disturb you, because I didn't know what I really wanted. Now, so you know," the man grinned bitterly. "Yes, I do. The moment I saw you with another man, I was sure of what I wanted. That's when I realized I was too late. I don't know why I thought I could get you back at any moment. I'm sorry, Kathy, I was wrong. I was afraid to live, to really live, afraid of pain. What am I feeling now? It's fear for my child. You know I've already suffered a great loss, but now I realize there is no life without suffering. No life without you, and without my son." Kathy couldn't take it anymore, she cried. "Robert, everything you're saying right now doesn't matter to me. The only thing I want is Thomas back. That's all I've been living for the last few days. I'm afraid, terribly afraid of making a mistake and losing him forever. That's what you're planning to do. If you're gonna call the police, then no. I'm not gonna let you do that because I'm scared. But I've already realized that. But Nina told me that you suspect that you're his Alex. What do you think about that?" "Yes, we do. And the further we go, the more so. Alex is behaving very strangely, watching my every move, checking up on my account, how much money I have, how much my apartment is worth, fussing about selling it. And I would even say more than me, and I'm an idiot. I know that. Letting a stranger in without looking at him, without recognizing him. You could say I didn't care. I so desperately wanted to forget." Kathy cast a fleeting glance at Robert and continued in a near whisper, "to forget you." At those words, Robert stepped toward her and enveloped her in a hug. She clung to him with her whole body, clinging to him as if he were a solid bulwark. Confidence. And Robert said in a voice hoarse with excitement, "Kathy, you're not a fool, I'm a fool. If I hadn't left you, none of this would have happened. But I'll make it right. We'll get our son back, I promise, and I'll do anything for it." And when Kathy came out of the driveway an hour later, Alex was finishing his phone call. "No, I'm telling you, I can't show you the car right now." She hurricaned through it, checking all the faucets. As she did so, the grandmother looked at the two children playing in the only room and another crying. The younger boy bent over a bowl of porridge in the kitchen. With that, Grandma left the apartment, nudging the recovering Jenna in the back. "Are you sure? I'm not leaking anything. What a mess I'm in." Even though Jenna was angry, she didn't see anything suspicious in the neighbor's visit. And the grandmother went downstairs and held out her palm to Robert, who was standing there. "Give me the money." "I watched everything in the apartment of a woman and 3 children." "You're not wrong. There's definitely 3, definitely a girl and 2 boys. One's just a little kid." This Robert showed the grandmother a picture of her son on the screen of his phone. The old woman looked at the screen carefully. "I can't see very well without my glasses, but it looks like him." Yeah, that's him." Robert jumped out of the doorway, greedily gulping air with his mouth. How had it all turned out so fast? He found him, found his son. More than anything in the world, he wanted now to burst into that apartment and rip Thomas out of this Jenna's hands. But he was a little scared. What if she saw him and did something to hurt the child? The man had promised Martin to report all his actions, so he found the strength to call a friend first on hearing the news, and the latter told Robert not to do anything, but to wait until he arrived at the scene super silly. "But I can't wait," Robert exclaimed. "When else are you going to get here? I'll go right now and get my son." You can't do that." Robert came to his senses. "We're going to get there real fast, even if you succeed, and you take that woman's baby away from her. Then Jenna will run off with Alex, and we won't be able to prove anything. You want the criminals to go unpunished." She also told Kathy not to say anything yet. "No way, you hear me?" She would give away her joy in front of Alex. And Jenna was very surprised when only half an hour after the neighbor's visit, the bell rang again in her apartment. Looking through the peephole, she saw the same old woman living downstairs. With irritation, the woman opened the door at the same time swearing, "What more do you want from me?" But she had no time to do anything, as uniformed men burst into the apartment, pressed her face against the wall, and handcuffs clicked on her hands. The last to run into the apartment was a tall, black-haired man in civilian clothes. He rushed over to the frightened and huddled Muzat in Thomas's corner and grabbed him in his arms. The boy was crying, and the man kept stroking his head and repeating, "Don't be afraid. It's over. I'm your daddy, you hear me? I'm daddy. I'm taking you to mommy." Martin approached the woman facing the wall. Svetlana removed the handcuffs from the woman and shoved her own phone, found on the table, into her hands. "Call your husband. Tell him to come here immediately." Without explaining anything, Jenna was pale, her eyes remained dry. "My children." She pointed her hand in the direction of the frightened boy and girl. "They are scared. Can I go to them?" "So you feel sorry for your own children, but you can bully other people's children." Martin grinned. "I will allow you to calm the children only after you call your husband here. Make up a good reason and tell him to come right away." Jenna helplessly took the phone in her hands and dialed her husband. "Alex, come right away. Something has happened with Thomas. I can't tell you everything over the phone." Yes, hurry, right now." When Alex ran into Jenna's apartment, he had no time to see anything, because right in the hallway he was met with a blow to the face. Robert hit him furiously, all the while repeating, "This is for my son, and this is for my wife." A young guy from the task force rushed to pull Robert away, but Martin stopped him with the words, "Don't. Wait, he's entitled to it. That scumbag is getting what he deserves." And the happy Kathy did not come down from the hands of her son, who paid for it himself with his little arms around her neck and could not tear himself away from his mom. At this picture, Robert looked on with a happy smile. He appeared on the doorstep with his son in his arms, Some time after, Alex jumped out after an incomprehensible phone call, mumbled something inaudible to Kathy. "Thank you," the woman whispered, peering out from behind the child's shoulder. "Thank you, Robert. You're welcome." "Thank you to me," Robert replied. "I did what any father in my position would have done. And if I had been a good father, I would have been there for you from the beginning and wouldn't have let anything like this happen. Kathy, will you let me stay with you? Forever?" Again, the woman asked in a whisper. "Forever," Robert replied. Kathy continued to hold her son with one hand and held out the other to the man. He stepped quickly, enclosing his family in an embrace. For a long time they still stood, embraced, the three of them. Family. The next day, Kathy and Robert went to the police station. There, Kathy, under the guidance of Martin, wrote a report of child abduction. And as she finished writing, the woman looked up at her spouse's friend. "And what will happen to them now?" "With Alex and his wife, they'll go to jail. Of course they'll go to jail. They'll go to jail. I promise you that. They'll go to jail for the maximum time allowed under this article. Alex, it's not clear with Jenna right now. Maybe she'll get a reprieve until the kids grow up. But I'll do my best to make sure that doesn't happen. What's going to happen to the kids? Where are they going to go? And if Jenna goes down, do they go to an orphanage? No, they won't." This Jenna turned out to be a pretty young mom. She got the call, and she's on her way to take the kids in. But if you look at it this way, when the grandmother raised her daughter in her own image, maybe the kids would have been better off in an orphanage. Who knows?